Hey guys, welcome to another episode of A Drummer's Guide to... So, I wanted to talk to you today about gig anxiety, and this is something that I feel that everyone struggles with at some point or to some degree. I know that I do, never so slightly now. It depends on the situation. When I first started playing the drums, I remember so well that feeling of, I can remember it. So it was a battle of the bands. I was 11 years old, and I remember walking into the building where this battle of the bands was, walking down the corridor, and I just remember feeling physically sick. And I was like, oh my God, like, what am I doing? And I've never felt that nervous before a show ever since. But I remember it so well, and I know people that still struggle with things like that, stage fright and stuff like that. So I thought that I'd just go through what I do to minomise that feeling. Not to say that it's necessarily a bad thing, because I think that good things can come from having a bit of gig anxiety, or because it turns into adrenaline, and interesting things happen when you let those things take hold of you in a way. Maybe not. I mean, as long as it doesn't it isn't to your detriment, then I think it can be a good thing. So anyway, let's talk about gig anxiety. So I'm sure that we've all had that feeling where you're standing side of stage and you're just like, oh my gosh, this might not work. And it's horrible to feel like that, to feel so out of control. I remember there's been gigs where the nature of the gig just meant that I am not in control. And because I'm a control freak, I think a lot of musicians are. And there was a particular gig, it was when I worked with Tricky, and just by the nature of how he ran his shows, because he works like a live DJ, so he points at people when he wants people to stop and start playing, but consequently what that means is you literally don't know what's about to happen. You have like this, the way that I put it is like a toolbox of things, i.e. parts to play, sections of songs, and then he just kind of does his thing, and you've got to react by pulling out the right tool at the right time and hoping for the best. And on the most part it worked, so that was good. But I distinctly remember standing side of stage in Turkey, in Istanbul, before our first show, and just being like, I don't know if I'm ready, because he hadn't even been in rehearsals. Like, we were just meeting that day, and it was like, oh my gosh, I don't even know if I'm ready for this. But here's the kind of things that I do. So the first thing that I do when it comes to any sort of gig anxiety is I will make sure that, obviously, before this point, before you're standing aside of stage, I will make sure that, okay, I want to know that I know everything as well as I possibly can. And the things that I can control, I know inside and out. And I did this with Tricky. Like, absolutely. I knew every section of every song. I knew, that's the other thing. He never worked from a set list. So he would just run over to the MD, who was a keys player, who would play the first couple of notes. And you've got to know what song this is, like, within the first couple of notes. So I knew every song from the first note that was played, or the first two notes, or sometimes even just from the tempo that I heard. And I was like, I know this because I've worked, like, so here's what I would do. I would make sure that I knew as much as I physically can, and everything that I could control, I knew inside and out. So at this point, cut back to being on the stage, side of stage, I just would say to myself, Emily, you've done everything that you possibly can to do the best that you possibly can on this gig, and you just need to trust that your ability will see you through this. Like, you've absolutely got to trust that. So that would sort of like calm me down a little bit. The other thing that I would tell myself, which probably isn't ideal, but I don't care, it works for me, is like, well, there's nothing you can do now, so you may as well just, like, lean in, as they say. Just lean in and just, like, embrace this situation right now. This is chaos. It's about to be chaos, which it was in an amazing, creative way. Just go full in it, like, on it. Embrace every moment, everything that you're feeling right now. Just go with it, because actually, and this is how I feel about that first time that I ever went on stage, I look back on that feeling with such fondness. At the time, it was freaking out. It was like, oh my gosh, I'm about to play a gig. Oh my gosh, I've only just started playing drums. But I look back on that and just go, wow, that was a real moment. and I've never felt like that since. So I need to embrace this right now. So that's what I did. I was like, right, I need to embrace what's happening right now, which is I need to just embrace feeling like this. Although this isn't a comfortable feeling, maybe it's okay, because at the end of this show, I'm probably going to be really elated, and tomorrow I won't feel so scared. And inevitably that's what happened, and that is what happens, you know. So I kind of like thought, right, accept the way you're feeling right now, because it's not always going to be like this. So that's also what I do when it comes to anxiety. It sounds really sadistic, I suppose. I try and enjoy the feeling of uncomfortableness, if that's a word. So yeah, I try and do that. I try and just go, right, cool, I'm alive, I have feelings, yay! So yeah, so I try and do that. The other thing that I also think is that, let's say, what is the worst case scenario? Worst case scenario is everything's going to fall apart and everyone's going to boo, and, you know, the whole show isn't going to go ahead and you're suddenly going to forget how to play the drums. Look, all those things, it's not going to happen, is it really? And especially if you have been playing for a little while, and even if you haven't, if you've been practicing up until this point and you've done the drills, as it were, you've done rehearsals or whatever it is, all the work that you've done up until this point, you need to trust yourself that it will work, because it has done in the past. But as I said, if this is your first gig, then you've just got to be like, okay, worst case scenario, if this is your first gig and it doesn't work out, that's okay. Like, you're at the beginning of your journey, and actually it's like, I've had times where I've like absolutely failed beyond belief, like worse than I ever could have thought. But you know what? They were the best times for me, as in the most valuable, because it gave me literally a list of things to work on to become a better player. And from those moments, although they were horrendous at the time, and I've never felt worse in my life probably, they were the turning point. And they also were the moment that I realised I clearly really want to be doing this, because if this has happened, this awful thing, and yet I'm still here going, but I still want to do it, I must really love this. So no matter what this situation is going to turn out as, you can always turn it around to be a positive, even if it may seem negative at the time. However, like I say, I'm sure that you've done enough work side of stage there as you're worried about going on stage. I'm sure that to care that much, to feel this anxious about something, that tells me more about you as a person, which is amazing, because wouldn't it be awful if you're like, whatever, I don't really care, so meh. I wouldn't want someone in my band that didn't care. I'd prefer the anxiety, please, because that's a much more kind of like, you have a lot of pride in what you do, and I think it's a nice thing to be able to embrace that. Oh, another thing that I do, actually, I've just remembered, to calm myself if I am feeling a little bit like all over the shop or whatever. So obviously depends on your instrument, but as a drummer, I would get a pair of sticks and either a practice pad or on a pillow or whatever it is, and I would play to a click, in fact not even to a click sometimes, super slow rudiments, so singles, doubles, paradiddles, whatever it is, like painfully slow. But what I would do is I would breathe with it. So I would do, say, a paradiddle, I would breathe in with it, so like I breathe in and out for every turnaround, so like but then I'd slow it down like super as slow as I could, which I'm gonna find really difficult right now. I feel like okay, let's try this. Slower. That would really help me, although right now that's made me feel a little bit lightheaded. But anyway, I suppose it's a type of meditation, and that would really center me and just kind of like make me okay, and just kind of, I don't know, just calm me down basically, because a lot of the time you don't realise that you're actually side of stage and like breathing really weirdly or heavily, or your heart's going to it's just like no, like slow it down, just breathe, and try and lean into the situation and trust that past experiences tell you that you are good enough to be here side of stage right now. What you're about to do, either you've played it a million times before because you've practiced it, or like you've done gigs before, or it's your first ever gig. So just take it for what it is and experience it, and just notice what is happening and what comes of it. And yes, you may have a negative experience in the show or on the gig or whatever. What I also would really suggest, and I wish I'd have done this when I was younger, is after a show, say things went wrong, and we're all really good at focusing on the things that went wrong. I know that I am, but this is something that I still do to this day, and I try and do it not just in my playing but in life. I will also try and recognise the positive things that happened and appreciate those, and just like embrace them and be okay with them, and just go, actually, that was good. And that's a hard thing for me to say. Like, that is a difficult thing for me to say. Like, that was good, or I did that well, or if that had happened 6 months ago, I would have been like, that's the most amazing thing ever. Notice that, like, don't just compare in a bad way, compare in a good way as well. So anyway, sorry, this has been a little all over the shop. I was hoping it would be a little more structured than what it was, but I hope this helped you in some way. And if you are struggling with gig anxiety, just try and, do these things, do the breathing thing, just look back at your past experiences where things have gone well, focus on the good things, make sure you're incredibly as prepared as you physically can be. If you're not, and you're side of stage and you're going, I'm not prepared, like, I should have done more, okay, do more next time, because there will be a next time. Notice that, or recognise that this gig will not be your be all and end all. It may be that, it may be your last gig with this person or this band or whatever it is. Okay, that might be sad. That doesn't mean it's the end of you as a drummer. Like, you can go and do more things, you can learn from this. So there's always going to be a positive from whatever the outcome is in this moment right now or before you're going on stage. So you've just got to find it, and you've got to create it as well and make it, because that's a big part of opportunity and positivity. I think you've got to create the positive and see it for what it is. So anyway, right, I'm going to go because this is just getting mental now. But I hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are, whatever you're doing. If you have any questions you'd like me to answer for you, then leave them in the comments. I'd be happy to do a video for you, hopefully help you out. And yeah, just be good, and hope you're having a lovely day wherever you are. I will see you next week for another video about something or other. More rambling, yay! Alright, I'll see you guys next week. See you later, bye.